love him.
Outrageous.
Sex. A bunch of sex.
You guys are bitches.
I love you.
It's okay up here.
See if you can guess this one, man. Check this one.
Get the fuck out. Excuse me, man. These guys make me crazy.
W.A.S.P. was actually something that was a brainchild of both myself and Chris Holmes that didn't really come to pass until about almost 7 years after the fact. We had a band originally called Sister. Sister was the first band to do things like using a 5-pointed pentagram, a symbol that's now used where the people are showing the horns of the devil. Out of the Sister experience, I met a guitar player, this tall, blonde young man, 19 years old, named Chris Holmes. Oddly enough, believe it or not, I was thumbing through a copy of Hustler magazine. And there's a section in there, if you're familiar with Hustler, there's a section in the back called Beaver Hunt, which is where all these voyeuristic men send these somewhat less than professional snapshots of their wives in and what have you. And they always have one for the ladies usually, and it says for ladies only. Well, I looked at it and here's this blonde thing standing there, and it's up underneath it says rock and roll animal, and I showed it to the drummer at the time. I said, look at this dude. Look at this guy, a character or what?
Real funny, he called me up and he says, well, I hear you're a guitar player. I said, yeah, I play guitar. Because he saw the ad in the magazine.
And the first thing I said to him was, how tall are you? And he said, 6'5". I said, how long is your hair? He goes, about halfway to my rear end. I said, you got any zits? He goes, no. I said, come on down. Sister broke up in 1978. We went back to the drawing board, and about 4 years went by from the time of Sister to W.A.S.P. And W.A.S.P. then incorporated this idea of psychodrama, which I've since been told is psychotic people doing drama. At the time we first started playing with Tony, Randy, Chris, and myself, we started playing at a club in Hollywood called the Troubadour.
Somebody was asking me the other day how I got the idea for the song Animal. Said I hooked up a videotape in my bedroom, rolled it back, made it rhyme. Within the first few gigs that we had played at the Troubadour early on, we were showing signs of making progress on leaps and bounds. The show came about largely by a series of mistakes. We had an idea for a type of theater that was being developed called psychodrama, where you try to take what's happening on the stage and put it into the audience as much as possible to get the audience involved. Now, that's where the meat came from. We used to chop up the meat and throw it into the crowd, and to us, the reasoning behind that was that, yes, it was a very crude form of theater, but it was like going to a baseball game. You had to pay attention for fear you get hit with a foul ball. In other words, what we were doing is we had no money, but the object was to make it look as big as it could. The object was to make W.A.S.P. look like it had $1 million, whether it did or whether it didn't. I tell you, I'm intense. I should have been born triplets. I got 3 times the intensity, 3 times the sex appeal, 3 times the macho any man alive. You know why the guys all come to these shows and you never see girls? Because all the guys got the girls home locked up. They don't want them to come home sitting here seeing us because they go home getting the Vaseline thinking about us. That's why they never come out here anymore.
Well, when we did the Troubadour shows, we had the sign with W.A.S.P. signed big letters, and we had these flames that go off around it. But we had different heights that we could put this sign to different places. Well, at that time, we got it down 1 click too low. When Blackie went up to start it with the torch, his hair was up, had all the hairspray. And when he lit it, his hair lit. And these kids up in the front, they're going, yeah, burn, Blackie, burn!
To create controversy, we staged a blood drive with the American Red Cross in Los Angeles, and they brought down a semi-tractor trailer with a dozen beds and a half a dozen nurses. And I remember on the last day I went into this truck, this mobile unit that they had, and they lined about 100 pints of blood up on the wall. And I took a photo in front of it, and it hit me at that point what we had done. But even then, that was showing stages that W.A.S.P were the kind of band that were not content with status quo. As far as the band acquiring attention, we had been on the cover of 4 major international music magazines by then, and then that's what started the interest. At that point, major labels were starting to pay attention to us. There's a club here in Hollywood called Rainbow Bar and Grill, and I was born in the kitchen of this place. I mean, I live there whenever I'm at home. And I was walking through there, through the bar area one evening, and there was a girl there that I knew, and she was sitting with this guy named Rod. And he says, aren't you such and such? Because I had been on the cover of an issue of an English magazine called Kerrang, which he was familiar with. And he says, yeah, I've seen you guys. And he starts going on and on and on about things that he didn't like about what we were doing. And I thought, who the hell are you? You know, I mean, I never met this guy before. So about 3 months goes by, and we were getting ready to play a show in Hollywood at the Troubadour. It was a special Halloween show, and this magazine I spoke about, Kerrang, had sent a photographer, Ross Halfin, out to do some photos of it. And Ross shows up, and he brings Rod along with him to this Halloween show, and Rod said he was coming along for a goof, you know, he didn't take us seriously or what have you. 2 days later, after we play the Halloween show, I'm walking through this Rainbow Bar and Grill again, and there's Mr. Rod Smallwood sitting there again. And he grabs me by the arm, and he pulls me down in the seat, and he immediately starts in on me about what I'm doing wrong. You're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, you're not marketing right. I go, who the fuck are you? You know, I says, here, I'm managing this band by myself, and I'm doing this, and I'm promoting it, and I'm doing all this stuff by myself, and I have no help and no money. And I says, where are you coming off from to tell me this stuff? Now, the first time I met the guy, I hated him. And the second time I met him, I liked him even less, because now he's really come down on me hard. Well, after we talked for about an hour, it dawned on me that he had designs on what we were doing, and he saw something there. By March of 1984, we had landed the deal with Capitol, and we had commenced recording the first album. In that first album was what was later to be regarded as maybe the most controversial song we've ever done, a song called Animal, I Fuck Like a Beast. Animal was a song that, because of its highly controversial lyrical content, was a song that people said would never get a lot of attention. We got a gold disc for it. The first album was called Wasp, and it was a collection of songs that had happened within the first year of us playing together. Tony Richards played drums on that first album, but Tony was not to go on any further with us after that. In walked Steve Riley, who at the time was a godsend for us. He was exactly what we were looking for at the time. Animal was probably the first song, Animal being I Fuck Like a Beast, was probably the first song that really caught on for the band. But I Want to Be Somebody was the first real anthem, something that could be exposed overall, exposed so to speak. It came from an idea of, if you remember the old Barney Miller show, there was a guy on there named Ron Glass, who played the part of a guy named Detective Ron Harris. And over the course of the run of the show ran for 11 years. Over the course of this show, after about the 4th or 5th season, Harris started writing a book called Bob, or Blood on the Badge. And he had labored and labored over this book, and he finally got it published, and he's just going to his first autograph signing party, and he's already asked Barney, who's Hal Linden, he asked him, he goes, can I get off early at, say, noon time to go and do an autograph signing for my book? And he says, sure. So Harris is talking on the phone, he's talking to this publisher, and he's just about getting ready to leave. And a mugging detail comes in over the phone, and Barney says, Dietrich, you and Harris, go check it out. And Harris goes, but Barney, I have to go to my autograph session. He says, Harris, I said, now. And he slams down the phone. He says, God, I want to be somebody. Like, and I watched that and I laughed my ass off and I watched it. But then I thought about the genius of it. I thought, you know, there's got to be a lot of people that feel like that out there.
Hey, Love Machine, those chicks, wow. I had this chick next to me, right? Like we were filming, and this poor broad, she was religious. I was saying stuff there and like she was cringing. Her eyes were red and stuff. And she was getting paid $300 a day, and she had to sit there and listen to my bullshit all day long for 3 days, and she was pissed off. I put it this way, I made $300 she got a day, I made it worth it. I made her work for her damn money. And she was okay looking. I hope she sees this.
Good night.
In September of 1984, we embarked on our first world tour, which took us to England, Europe, Japan, and then back to America. And we were gone for about 9 months the first time. We started on the UK leg of the tour, and that's where the Live at the Lyceum video came from. And that was a landmark video at that time because it shows people exactly what went on. But nevertheless, when you're doing a show like that is that visually intense, I think people are going to come out thinking they see things that never really happened, which is one of the beauties about rock and roll theater.
In Southern California, the man that doesn't die. He is the outlaw that rides. He is the Hellion.
If you know what W.A.S.P means, fine, and if you don't, that's fine too. It was the kind of thing that was designed to give everyone something to expand on, to give them some food for thought, so to speak, you know, give them somewhere to go. In that sense, the name has worked perfectly for us. I don't really foresee, or I don't see myself, the connections with the occult or what have you, because to me, well, I studied the occult for 3 years, and I know exactly what that stuff is about. I don't study this stuff anymore because I've since determined that it's not for me. But for anyone to say that W.A.S.P. is an occult or a satanic band or anything like that, personally speaking, I think that's a bunch of bullshit. After we finished the first world tour, we got ready to start our second album, which was called The Last Command. Out of that came some great songs. One of them being the first video from that, which was a song called Blind in Texas. Blind in Texas was the song, and thereafter the video, was an idea of something that happened to us on our first world tour. We actually, it's a true story, the things that happened there. We had about 3 days off there, and we met a guy down there who owns a record store named Texas Tapes and Records in Houston, Texas. A fine young man by the name of Jeffrey Hammer. And Jeff is probably Spuds McKenzie reincarnated. You know, I mean, here's a guy that likes to have a good time. We got down there, and like I said, the 3 days off, this guy was playing the host to the max down there. So we had a good time, and we kept on having a good time. And the song actually came about, I wrote it in the middle of a blinding snowstorm in Minnesota one night. So it didn't actually, the event took place in Texas. The song was not written in Texas. It took, I guess, that long to recuperate after it was all over to try to figure out what was going on. After the song was recorded, we made our first video for the album Last Command out of it. And I would say largely, if you look around my house here and what have you, you'll see things that are direct influences of that video. I mean, here's a city boy coming from New York. You know, if somebody would have told me 10 years ago I'd be living, you know, here I am out here, the cowboy of Calabasas, the Ben Cartwright of rock and roll, I would have told him you were out of your mind. And I wouldn't have given it a second thought, but here I am today. about a year and a half after the debut of our first album, we were commencing work of the second album called Last Command. And right about that time, there was this wonderful organization that cropped up called the PMRC. And the PMRC stands, theoretically, for the Parents Music Resource Center. It's, in effect, an organization which is now defunct as we speak. They're an evil organization in the sense that whenever you dictate to someone how to live their lives between now and 20 years ago, things should be left to the individual as to what they think they should or should not listen to. If you don't want to listen to what we're doing or you don't want to watch it, then don't buy it, don't go see it. But there's no reason in the world for anyone to try to put a label on it.
we were in Finland, so we're playing there, and we go off stage, you know, for this encore, and all the people are like, you know, asking us or screaming to come back on, right? All of a sudden, you know, we come back on, right? And Blackie's doing this, telling about the song. We had a song called Animal with I F like a beast, or, you know, F means fuck. I fuck like a beast. So, you know, I'm standing there, and there's no lights on. I can barely see anything. And all of a sudden, the next thing I can remember is I was looking at the ceiling, and my roadie drugged me off stage, and I was looking at my amp. And somebody had carried a rump roast about this big around, and it was like about 30, I'd say about 22 degrees outside. It was frozen. And this kid had thrown it up on stage and smacked me in the face. That's like getting hit with about a 50-pound rock. Bob, boom, and I was out. And they drugged me off stage. And next thing I can remember is just waking up. My roadie's shaking me. Go, Chris, get up, you gotta play. He just threw me back out on stage. Guitar was out of tune, everything. And I just went out and played the song, out of tune, laughing. I didn't care. The next day I had a big welt on my head. I looked like a cyclops. You couldn't see my eye.
We knew, like, Randy was going to be leaving the band. We knew that already. So it was a perfect opportunity for me to go back and play guitar. So I told Chris, I says, I really don't want to play bass. I call bass a tool of ignorance. And so I said, well, let me go back playing guitar, because I'm a guitar player by trade anyway.
I was in a band called King Cobra for about 2 years. We toured, did some tours with Kiss and that. And then I went on tour, and it was King Cobra, Wasp, and Ted Nugent on tour. So we were finishing up the tour in Texas, right? And I talked to Chris a little bit at that time, and became friends with him, but I didn't really know anything about at that time they were going to make a change in the band. So when I got home, about 3 weeks later, somebody left a message on my machine. I came home one night, and it was all garbled with messages. Some guy said, "John, this is Chris. Call me at some number." And I said, "I'm not going to call this fool, some maniac. You know, I don't know who it is." So I didn't call, man. Then about three days, so I waited about 3 days later, and then I came home again, and there was a message on the machine. This time he was speaking clearly. I think he was sober at that point. Anyway, and he said, "This is Chris Holmes from Wasp, and give me a call." So I called him up next day, and he told me that they were interested in having me in the band. Would I come up and check it out? Come up and talk to Blackie? And I said, "Well, sure, man. I'll check out anything. You know, I'm ready for Freddie. I'm ready to check anything out. You know." So I went up and talked to Blackie. Told me what's happening and stuff, and I said, "Sure, I'm interested." So I went and auditioned. I auditioned about a week later, you know. And after the audition, they held a gun to my head, you know. And they said, "Okay, listen, man, you're gonna join the band. If not, it's all over for your ass." I said, "Oh, okay, man, okay, click."
The third album, called Inside the Electric Circus, was an attempt to go back to where we had originally started with the original sound. The whole idea of Inside the Electric Circus is what the band's viewpoint was when we stood on the stage and looked out at the audience, because it became a three-ring circus out there. We have seen things on a stage that the average audience participant will never witness, because we get the whole picture up there.
About Donington, well, and people, they got this custom over there where they like to fill plastic containers full of piss, right? And they like to throw them at the stage and see who they can hit, man. Yeah. Well, they can't afford bathrooms. What about the camera? But anyway, no, man. Yeah, I got hit. Yeah, right. I got hit with an apple in the face or anything else. But man, because they throw the piss at us and it just hits the stage and explodes and shit. So we got pissed off and we trashed the stage, you know. And we decided to throw the shit, man. I was trying to hit some kid down in the front with his Marshall cabinet, but man, I don't want to get sued, you know.
I'm so mean, no doctor.
directed by David Mallet in London. It was done at Hammersmith Odeon. It was shot on the same day that we played Hammersmith Odeon. Later that night, when we played the actual show, we recorded for the BBC. And there were no overdubs on it or anything. Well, I had to go back to London a couple of days later after that, and I mixed it, and I was surprised at how good it really was. And I went back to the guys and I says, I think we have something here. I think it's time to do what it is that we do best, which is a live performance. We were then looking for a video to come out of this, and we were approached with an idea for a movie for Ghoulies 2. We went and we looked at the footage, and we decided then at that point that Scream Until You Like It would be the perfect song to showcase an idea like this. To me, it's one of the better experiences that I've had, because the people that ran these creatures made them come to life when we were doing this video. And after it was done, in all honesty, to watch these little guys be put in the box left me with a strange feeling.
You never know what to expect on the inside. Get your tickets now.
Really scary, mister.
Come on in.
Which direction you guys going now? How's the band coming? What's
Pomona.
happening next?
That direction.
We're going to
Pomona.
You
went that way.
Pacoima. Towards the
That
laundry.
direction.
We're going to be touring Los Angeles and the greater LA area in January. We're doing Pacoima, Torrance,
Downey.
Hawthorne, the Lawless Verdes.
Downey.
It reminded me of a girl I went out with one time. She told me she wanted me to kiss her with a small plane, so I took her to Torrance.
Yeah, dude. Right.
We want to do something for you now. Something we've never, ever done anywhere before. This is the son of animal. This is the manimal. I gotta tell you something. Ever since I was a little boy, I've had one thing on my mind. Women. And I love everything about them. The way they look, the way they smell, the way they feel. Well, this is a story about obsession. Obsession in the purest sense. That's how I got the name. The Manimal.
normally do for you guys that are buying this. This is what happens when you consume massive amounts of drugs and alcohol.